Hello and welcome to State of the Economy. Today we have a special guest with us, Dr. Vivek Lall, CEO of General Atomics, a global company based out of US, which is at the cutting edge of nuclear and defense manufacturing. Welcome to our show, Dr. Vivek Lall.
Thank you, Venu.
You were recently, you had a one-on-one meeting with Prime Minister Modi, who was on his visit to the US, where he met several CEOs in the United States to look for deeper engagement between India and US. And you met him and you had discussions with him as well as the other government representatives on technology engagement, strategic technology engagement with India. Now, given that you represent a company which is at the cutting edge of technology in defense and nuclear, civil nuclear industry, how do you see India as a prospect today, post the Modi visit?
Thanks, Venu. I think post the visit, there has been renewed vigor, especially in the corporate sector, to look at how we can engage in terms of both the US and India bilateral relationship from a technology perspective, as well as an innovation perspective. I think several companies there in the US have several niche technologies that have both dual-use applications as well as applications in the defense industry. And the key is then, therefore, how do you build partnerships where those technologies can truly be absorbed in the real sense of the word to the requirements for the Indian corporates and government.
Indian industry.
And Indian industry.
Indian defense sector.
Correct. And the key is how will the technology be absorbed, and the other aspect is then after absorption, how does one then begin to innovate to the next level?
So create an ecosystem, say, in India.
Correct.
Yeah. So, Vivek, I'd like to understand from you, what is standing in the way of a natural partnership, as it were, between US companies and Indian companies in very critical areas of defense technologies, nuclear, civil nuclear technologies. It's used for medicines also. It's used for generating power. Now, India and US, there is a consensus that we are natural partners, right? There is an ecosystem. There are Indians there. There's an Indian diaspora which is very, which is kind of sitting in industries there, in the very high-tech sectors there. And it makes engagement with India so much easier. Like you are there, you're an Indian, you head a US company. So government to government, it seemed there had been some reluctance to coming together and creating the right framework, right policy framework, as it were. One, of course, was foreign investment in defense, which recently this government liberalized. 49% a US company can have in a local joint venture. Now, what do you think are the impediments? Can you just explain to our viewers in very simple terms what needs to be done? Because there is consensus that something needs to be done, right? How to go about it?
I think from an industry perspective, one of the things both in India and as well in the US, one is looking for as one dialogues on technology are three elements. One is predictability. In other words, if there is a certain technology sharing or technology transfer, then the predictability of what are the next steps, what will happen to the technology, etc. Another aspect is accountability. So who is accountable for that whole process, and that gives comfort in the corporate boardrooms. And the third is responsibility. So if you have these three elements,
so you're saying accountability of policy framework here?
Correct, that's right.
So so in the context of productionizing technologies here, how do you see this government's big plan of Make in India, letting foreign companies come and make things in India? I mean, how do you see that?
That's, I think, a very laudable effort, and I think it's a great move by the government. I think it will attract a lot of players from the US especially who are keen, very keen, to actually co-manufacture, co-develop products, not only for the US-India market, but also for the global market at large. And I know several companies can in fact create India as a base of manufacturing for the global export market. So I think both governments can play the role, I think, of a facilitator, and that's the direction in which it's going. Facilitate business-to-business ties, because ultimately, I think the businesses in both countries will be able to lead the technology sharing.
Can you tell me, Dr. Vivek, what 2 or 3 key steps that need to be taken from here on to create Make in India, to execute Make in India? Let's say your company.
Right.
Like your company is at the cutting edge of civil nuclear industry.
Right.
You're at the cutting edge of certain very high-tech defense manufacturing.
Right.
Like unmanned surveillance aircrafts, right?
Right.
What is
That's
popularly called drones.
Right.
So you are the pioneers in making drones,
right,
which are today required for various reasons, for civil purposes also.
Correct.
In agriculture, you can use drones, right?
Correct.
So, so now, if you want to set up manufacturing facility in India, or if any other defense US company wants to manufacture in India, just 3 or 4 steps which are required in the immediate future, next 2-3 years.
Right. I think you ask a very important question, because most of these technologies and/or manufacturing plants, especially in the defense nuclear industries, they can take many years, 10 years or greater, for it to fully incubate and transfer. So the important question is, what can be done in the next 2-3 years to actually start putting those seeds in the ground and incubating this? I don't think results will come very quickly, but at the same time, there are certain steps, and I think one of the first things that can be done is certainly identify projects that can be undertaken jointly. And I know when the Prime Minister was in Washington, D.C., there was a lot of talk of the DTTI, which is the Defense Technology Trade Initiative between the 2 countries, and there is a list of projects that go in that.
And now, all the offset policy, whereby designed to get people here and come in joint ventures here, right? Correct,
absolutely. And as part of India's policies, of course, offset is there. So that offset policy is supposed to be a catalyst for spawning industry here. And so I think with identifying certain key projects and then taking it to the next step of execution and co-manufacturing, I think in the next 2 to 3 years, if we see those things, then you create a competitive industry. And once you have a competitive industry, whether or not you have an offset policy, as has been seen around the world, companies will naturally gravitate to where there's competence and where they can lower their costs for the global supply.
Okay. So you do feel that, that the American companies are really optimistic about coming here, lowering their costs, especially engineering costs, research costs, and actually make India a place from where they could also look at exporting to the other parts of the world?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think there have been examples of other countries who have done that very successfully.
Like, can you name some other countries?
I think, for example, Australia, there's a lot of innovation that happens there, and they were able to incubate an industry there. And now American companies operating in Australia use Australia as a base to export elsewhere.
So if we were to, so do you think if India were to lay down policy framework, as you said, to make this happen fast and flatten the bureaucracy around this whole thing, then the technology partnership at a strategic level could be realized? Is that your belief?
I believe so. I think there is renewed trust. There is a renewed willingness in corporate boardrooms to look at this, especially as in the U.S. Defense budgets decline. A lot of corporations are looking for international growth as part of their strategy. And when you roll out the world map, there are very few countries that provide the overall environment for U.S. business to thrive and grow, including manufacturing. And India is one of them.
And Dr. Vivek Lall, one problem that I see here is India's overall foreign policy direction and its geopolitics as well as geoeconomics. Now, do you think this Indo-US partnership falls within the current foreign policy direction that India is following? Because some people do express sometimes reservation over whether India and US can indeed, given our past relationship framework,
right.
Last 15-20 years, of course, there's been a deepening of India-US partnership. Is that a possibility?
I think so. As the world collaborates, and on some of these technologies we are talking about, even U.S. companies work globally with companies in Japan and so forth. So as we look at some of these products and platforms that are to come in the future, they're more and more so-called globalized platform with technologies coming in from several countries. So with respect to foreign policy, it may not necessarily only be U.S.-India, but it could be U.S.-India-Japan, it could be U.S.-India-Australia.
It could be U.S.-India-Europe.
Correct, that's right. And so I think one has to look at it with a broader perspective, especially when one is collaborating.
So you're saying it does fall within our broader foreign policy framework?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah. I believe so.
We'll take a small break here. Please don't go and keep watching RSTV. Welcome back to State of the Economy. We are talking to Dr. Vivek Lall, CEO of General Atomics and in charge of international strategic development. Dr. Lall, you're saying that that our foreign policy framework is also very well suited today for a robust India-US technology partnership. Now, your company is also at the cutting edge of civil nuclear technology, right? Now, tell me some of the problems that are coming in the way of full nuclear technology partnership. How do you see the nuclear liability bill, which has been a thorn in the flesh of deeper engagement between India and US?
Yeah, I think a lot of progress has been certainly made in the last several years between US and India in the civil nuclear area. I think from a corporate perspective, naturally, there is a risk versus reward framework that one has to look at. And I think in terms of nuclear liability, etc., I don't see this as an obstacle really in the longer term. I think it's something that can be overcome because at the end of the day, everyone is looking how to manage risk.
Yeah.
And
you have to get the risk out of the balance sheets and spread it across, right?
Correct, that's right. And so I think it can be overcome, and I look forward to true progress being made once these risk-related issues are resolved.
Okay. And do you have any ideas or suggestions in regard to how the liability clause can be tweaked in a way that is acceptable to both the parties, both the sides, and some kind of middle-of-the-road solution?
I think in terms of nuclear liability and liability clauses applicable even to defense industry, it is the question of how do you frame certain limitations to the liability so that not any one entity, whether it is the company
so burden doesn't fall on any single entity.
Correct. And
disproportionately,
that's correct. And then collectively, it's the responsibility.
Okay.
And sure, the ones who is at fault in the event of a disaster obviously would have to bear that. But at the same time, going in, some sort of collective shared responsibility we'll probably see the right path ahead.
We'll say right path ahead. So you're hopeful that something will come through in this regard?
I'm very hopeful because the benefits of getting over this hurdle of the liability issues are manifold for India in particular and certainly the rest of the world because I think there are many technologies to be shared. We do a lot of nuclear fusion research in our company, so there are latest and greatest things that are available that I think should be shared.
Should be shared, yeah. And your company also is at the cutting edge of solar technology. And India is spending a lot of resources and energy, no pun intended, on solar, on getting solar off the ground, because we are still dependent on coal-driven energy for nearly 60% of our requirement. Now, there's a general view, consensus view is that this cannot go on. You can't, even looking at climate change compulsions in the next 30, 40 years, there is a need to reduce dependence on coal. Now, what sort of energy strategy do you think India can put in place with nuclear also being there as an important component contributing to our energy needs?
That's right. I think solar and renewables, a very important topic you have touched on, Venu, is...
and both are clean fuels, right?
And both are clean fuels. And I think that there are two aspects that have to be looked at and made progress on. One is, how do you more efficiently capture the energy and distribute
in the
the
case
energy?
Of solar.
In the case of solar. And the second is, how do you bring down the cost? Because if you have newer technologies, and you're right in the sense that there are newer technologies, evolving technologies to do that. And if you can do that cost effectively, certainly the corporates will take that up, and at the end of the day, the larger public stands to gain. So those are where some of the cutting edge technologies can have.
So do you foresee, say, in the next 10 years, solar energy or a solar plant working at, let's say, 60, 70% PLF capacity?
I do see. I do see on the horizon several, just based on what I know of where the technology is heading.
Okay.
I do feel that there can be a quantum leap in...
so there would be quantum, there could be a quantum leap.
Could
I'm asking because you're so closely watching in your role.
Correct.
You're watching the probably ongoing research programs in this sector.
That's right.
Because the current thinking is, or the current pessimistic thinking, as it were, is that solar will not take off and its plant load factor does not allow for use of solar or scaling up of solar energy in this country.
Right.
Especially, we are so endowed with sun and solar resources, natural resources.
That's right.
So you do foresee that there could be a non-linear kind of
I think so.
Increase in the efficiency of solar power plants?
I do think so. I think there are technologies on the horizon that I see that could actually have a big paradigm shift in the way we have all been observing and predicting the solar business. I think there is going to be large gains to be made, especially from a PLF perspective.
And your company does have a lot of back-end research going on in solar?
That's right. In the sense that the components that, again, capture and deliver the energy at a lower cost. Okay. I think there's research there that can lead to that positive outcome.
Tell me, Dr. Vivek Lall, if you imagine, say, 2030, so in 2030, just give me your idea of, as a scientist, what would you imagine the energy mix for India could be, given all these advances that you're talking about, if they fructify? Just give me a rough idea.
Sure. I think right now we talk about solar and renewables as a potential. And projecting it to 2030, I would see that it can become a reality. I think it requires, again, two things. One is a very deliberate focus on R&D within India as well on this subject. And
I'm assuming all this would happen. Correct. I'm assuming that India will have robust R&D. There will be technology partnership with companies such as yours.
Correct.
So do you say by 2030, 50% of our energy requirements would be from clean fuels like solar, nuclear, and wind combined?
I don't see any reason why not. I think you are right in that kind of numbers, and which is very significant to speak of at this stage.
Yeah, it would be non-linear.
It would be non-linear.
Yeah, because if you go by linear projection,
that's right.
Then it would be no more than 10%.
That's right. That's right. So that's why I see exponential growth possible.
In the next 20 years, right?
Yeah, I do see that.
Yeah. And you do see a role for technology companies such as yours in India, working in India and actually participating in this great growth story in energy, clean energy?
Absolutely, I do see that, and I see, as we get into a more globalized economy, I think it is imperative, and the lessons learned here, let's say, of U.S.-India partnership can be replicated across the world.
Okay. And Dr. Lall, I want you to not talk about how you view the Indian bureaucracy. You're not unfamiliar to the Indian bureaucracy. You worked in India.
Right.
You worked as the head of Boeing for India, right? So now, how do you see the Indian bureaucracy, defense bureaucracy, because you're dealing with that right now in your present role, especially in the offset policy framework. How does the bureaucracy need to change?
I think, every country...
Purely in terms of your dealing with them.
I think, every country has its bureaucracy and a certain vision and certain mission statement of where they want to go with the policy framework. You touched on offsets.
Yeah.
And I think since the offset policy has been instituted here, there has been a yearly or every 2 years a change in the policy to tweak it to suit the evolving environment.
So it's becoming more flexible?
It is becoming more flexible.
And you expect that Mr. Modi will make it even more flexible?
Absolutely. And the idea of flexibility is to see on-the-ground results. Yeah. So if you have a policy framework that is leading to certain on-the-ground tangible results that you can see, that as a result of this policy, you were able to create a platform that does X, Y, and Z. That is the true test of the policy.
Okay.
And so I think one aspect of the policy I feel strongly about is education in aerospace. For example, to be able to create that skill base, it is very important in any of these technologies, nuclear defense.
So you have to create an ecosystem.
You have to create an ecosystem.
Which has research, productionizing capacity, etc., etc.
Correct,
right?
That's right.
And how do you see, Dr. Vivek Lall, India's current research institutions in the area of defense? Like we have DRDO.
Right.
We have capabilities. We have great capabilities in space.
Right.
Now, how do you see U.S. institutions, U.S. private companies, collaborating with these institutions, public sector institutions? Because in very high strategic area, you'll have to collaborate with DRDO, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's only the private sector companies would collaborate in the area of ordinary defense manufacturing, not very high end, right? So how do you see that happen? You're collaborating with DRDOs here and the high-end research institutions, public sector research institutions.
That's right. I think you mentioned a very important aspect, which is ISRO has done phenomenally well with all their research and development, and not only that, at a very cost-effective, low cost on their Mars mission, etc. So there's a lot of learnings, in fact, that can be taken back as well, both ways.
Okay.
That is one thing to appreciate. The other thing is that working with DRDOs or the research agencies here, I think it is important to, again, identify projects and have a very strong project management and program management in place with specific timelines.
With specific timelines.
So
specific timeline is very important.
It's very important, I think so.
Because I remember recently Prime Minister Modi told scientists at the DRDO that you can't have a situation where you start something in 1984 or thereabouts and in 25 years you don't show much progress. So we can't afford that.
Right.
So,
and the nature of research and development do require long gestation periods. However, if you have strong program management in place, you can take exit ramps when you need to take them, and you can refocus your efforts when you need to refocus.
And this program management has to be collaborative.
It has to be
Today, I guess you can't think of an ecosystem in a national framework. I guess it has to be in a cross-border framework. That's what you're saying, right?
That's right. That's right. So, and leverage the skills. So
on both ways.
Both ways.
Yeah. Research skills, etc.
That's right.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dr. Vivek Lall, for talking to us.
Thank you, Venu.
That's all we have in this edition of State of the Economy. We'll be back with you next week. Thanks for watching.